say hello and welcome to our session. Today, my name is Andre Verster and I'll be presenting this session today. We will take about 45 minutes or so, spending time on trying to find out what Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central is, and also what we want you to have an answer to go understand what it is, but also for you to make sense and go, is this something that I should be looking at for my business? So that's the idea of today's session. It is not a technical session, so we won't be showing setup screens and configuration or using any jargon really. I want to keep it plain and simple for everybody to just understand what Business Central is, from there, and how it can help your organization and where it fits. My colleague Mark Deely is in the background. He will be taking any questions. So if you have questions as we progress through today's webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A area in the Q&A section. Mark will be answering our questions over there. The session is also recorded, so you will get access to the session after today's webinar. Right, so let's get cracking. On our agenda today, just kind of what we will cover, 6 points really. We'll start off with what the growing pain patterns are for most organizations. We'll then have a look at defining what Business Central is. We'll show where it fits into the finance and operations and into that wider Microsoft stack and ecosystem. And we'll also then take a look at Business Central. So showing you a few screens of Business Central so you can kind of get an understanding of what that looks like. We'll talk about, in today's world, we have to talk about AI and Copilot. So we'll take a look at that. And then the last thing is just defining when it fits. Okay, so having a look at when Business Central will fit for your organization. So having a look at why Business Central and why systems get complex as you grow. So almost everyone faces the same three things. Growth brings complexity, a faster pace of change. And now in today's world, we have AI where it's starting to rewrite the everyday work that we do. It's putting a lot of pressure on finance and operations. And Microsoft have done their own research where it basically shows that 80%, more than 80% of people are showing that they don't have enough time. And it's not because they aren't working hard enough, but it's because the systems aren't set up around them, and it's making it harder for them to work. So at this point, this is where we have organizations take this opportunity and try to build on the efficiency on the foundations. Okay, so it's as these little things, as organizations grow, that's where we start to struggle. Now, having a look at where these growing pains and where it starts, most of our organizations don't start off complex, we just start off with a simple finance package, some spreadsheets, and it works, right? So all that works for a time. Then we start to grow and we start to add more tools, each tool to solve a different problem. So we then have a finance tool, then we have a different tool maybe for ordering, we might have a different tool for stock. And it's not a problem, but it works and it's there to solve a specific issue. But now we have data that's spread across multiple tools. We have then people that are rekeying data in multiple different places. We have people that know these systems. So what then happens is that the people that are managing the systems become the glue and the wiring between the systems to make sense of it. So people are busy at the price of being productive, really. So the honest question isn't, is it broken? It's often, is it still working? Does this still fit into where the organization is heading? And that's the moment we have to think of, is ERP the place that we need to start looking at? Is Business Central the thing that we need to look at? So once we get to that place where we're going, what is happening? We've got a lot of different systems, we are growing. Do we need to look at a better system to help us and cater for the specific situation that we're in? So that's where ERP really joins into that conversation. So what is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central? That's a mouthful, to be honest. During today's session, I might just refer to it as Business Central. The full name is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, but in short, it's Business Central for us. Okay, so Business Central is Microsoft's cloud ERP. It's a single system where finance and operations come together with shared data and shared rules. That's the whole point of it, okay? In most organizations, finance and operations work off of different systems and then have to reconcile these systems. But in Business Central, it's not separate systems. We are one system. It's one system with different views of the same information. Okay, so where we might have our customer detail, we might have vendor detail, items, prices, financial data, all of this is live and in one central system. Okay, so when operations acts and there's for example, a sales order that's being processed through, that has immediately an impact on finance too. So finance can see that. That also means that because we're on a true SaaS solution, so software as a service, that's what SaaS means, software as a service, it's online. It also means that you are always going to be up to date with the latest version of the software, so the latest version of Business Central. So no more big upgrade projects. There are 2 major updates in a year, not to get into too much detail, but you'll always be on the latest version of the system. Okay, so that's the key area, and that's what Business Central is at its core. One platform in the Microsoft world, as we mentioned. What does this basically mean? So Business Central doesn't stand on its own. Yes, it is the absolute core ERP, but it's part of the wider Microsoft platform. Okay, so what we have underneath it sits your Microsoft Azure. This gives you your enterprise-grade security, your reliability, and also scales with you without having to think about, I need an extra server in a room, for example. What do I need to do to scale with it? Okay, so that's our Azure platform. That's the bottom layer that enables Business Central. But with that, we've then got the Power Platform. Now, our Power Platform helps us with automations and dashboards, for example, to help us in different business processes that we need. You also have your Microsoft 365, so the applications that you're using today already, your Outlook, Excel, Teams, Business Central integrates with that as standard, okay? With that too, you then have the rest of the Microsoft 365 or the Dynamics 365 stack too. So your Dynamics Sales, or CRM, for example, that integrates with Business Central. So we can use those platforms too. So you have 2 payoffs. One is adoption. People don't have to live in one new system. They can work through Outlook and Excel, pull data into Excel and publish that back into Business Central too, and the confidence. So you're also not then putting all your money on on a niche vendor. You are looking at a Microsoft system. Okay, so that ERP is Microsoft core ecosystem. Okay. So to bring that kind of, again, into a bit more of a visual image, you have the whole Microsoft stack. You have Business Central, but we can use the rest of the Microsoft applications, your Microsoft 365, so as I said, your Teams, your Word, Excel, for example. You have your Power Platform, so whether you're creating Power BI reports, Power Automate, for example. And then at the bottom is your Azure core that's holding everything together. Okay. Now, what does good actually look like? So if we have one finance and operations team at that core foundation, we basically have a look at 3 things. You have faster, people adapt faster, so it grows, or your platform adapts faster, so it can grow with you. If you have a new entity or a new location, or you might be going into a new area of business, we can adapt quicker because we've already got Business Central. So creating a new entity is not an issue. We can work smarter, so go one version of the truth. Data is captured once, we're not capturing it multiple times. Things run through from ordering, from operations, creating an order, through to finance posting too. All that happens in one process. Okay. We can perform better because our data is accurate and it's live in one central place, which means reporting is also then at your fingertips. Finance closes faster and leaders can decide on what's true today and not have to wait for a specific time on reporting. So the real prize isn't the software, it is that businesses no longer have to fight its systems and people get time back too. Okay, so that's the core that we're talking about over there. But all that in mind, let's have a look at what Business Central actually looks like. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a view of Business Central. So 5 points over here, really. We're going to have a look at what we call the role center. So the role center is really the initial place that people see when they log in, show them their specific KPIs, things that they need to concentrate on their day-to-day. We then have a look at a little bit of a sales order flow, so the operational side, where you can see data in Business Central from the customer, the item, and prices that are already configured in Business Central, and then what the impact is on finance after that. Have a look at then that flows into your reporting. So once we've done all that, we can then have a look at the report. And then we'll touch on that Microsoft ecosystem, as I mentioned, how we can integrate into the other platforms. So Teams or Outlook from there. Okay. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So firstly on the screen over here is your role center. So from here, you'll see that on our role center, this is where people can then see specific KPIs. So if we're looking at specific details over here of activities, so the sales this month, what does that look like? Ongoing sales quotes. I have a queue over here that can show me the ongoing sales quotes. Purchase orders, what I have on purchase orders, if I might have something that's waiting for my approval even. I don't have it on the screen, but if I was doing approvals, I could see those approvals on screen over here. So this gives you a bit of a view of when I log into Business Central, what are those specific tasks I need to focus on? In my role as a sales order processor, I can see how many orders are waiting for me to look at. If I'm doing specific payments and I need to do a payment run, vendors that are due, invoices that are due for payments, I can have a look at that and see that in one view. Okay. Now, what does it look like when we have to actually create a sales order? So you can have different options again in Business Central, and I can say, well, I want to go in and create a sales order for us over there. But when we create the sales order, we go into that screen, you have a whole list of all the sales orders that have already been created or in progress at a particular point in time. I can create a new one, and from here, I have a drop-down list for all my customers. Okay, so I've already set up all my customer lists. I can go in and type a number or a name, and that will give me some information for my customers. I then have all the default data that, because it's already set up, I have the address details, I have all the other information will already populate in the correct places. But now I might want to add some details in terms of what I actually want to sell to this particular customer. I then have my whole stock list. So all my inventory items, what does that look like? I can pick from a drop-down list on there. If you're not using inventory, it's not a problem. You can use your GL accounts. So it can work with GL accounts. You might want to, for example, sell a fixed asset even. You could purchase and sell a fixed asset. But over here, we're just using the example of inventory items. Okay, so I can pick my inventory item, which it will then populate that information in Business Central. I can say how many of those items I want to sell. So in this case, 10 of those particular items. But from there, I can then also have a look at the different prices that have been already configured within Business Central. So not only do I have the capability to just select my specific items that I want to sell. But then if I have specific prices and price groups, this customer, in this case, I've got all customers. So you can see over here, I have different price lists set up for either all customers. So that's the price that all customers will get. Or for this particular customer, I have a special price for them. Okay, so this is already configured within Business Central where we can set up all our different price lists and define those different rules and set up for the customer or the item or item groups, for example. So I can select the specific price. Obviously, you can, Business Central can even default to the correct price that we even want to use. Okay, that will set that up in this particular sales order. From there, once we're ready and this order is now confirmed, you'll see we have this open status. So open when we're still busy working with this particular sales order. But when we're ready to progress this further, we can go in and release this. Once that is released, basically it means that these goods are ready to go, ready to be shipped. Okay. From there, I have the option to then go in and post this. So in Business Central, anything that we post, that's where we're actually doing a full transaction. Now, there is obviously more to this. This is a very simple example. But if you're using warehousing and you were going to do specific picks, for example, in your warehouse, and you needed to do barcode scanning, for example, Business Central can handle all those different situations too. This is just a simple example. But the capabilities are there, okay? So don't forget about that. Over here, I'm just posting a simple sales order. So I can go in and ship and invoice these goods. And as soon as I do that, I then have what's called a posted sales invoice. So now I have an actual tax invoice that has been processed. But with that, because we have one system again, we're not having separate systems, I can see what the financial impact is already. So operationally, I can process my sales order, put in my specific items that I'm going to sell to my customer. I can put in all the details of what the prices are. If it needs to go to a different location, there might be different addresses. But as soon as I process that, I then have my financial impact on this too. So I can see from the screen, you can see that we have our general ledger entries. I have VAT entries on there. Everything's already calculated in the background based off of setups and configurations. Okay, so you don't have to re-enter this in a different system. We've got all the information. I can drill down into that and see all the different entries that have been created from this one document. So that allows me to do that drill up, drill down functionality to see all the information. Okay. As I mentioned, and as we saw earlier, you've got your stock information. So this items list is all your inventory. So on the inventory, I can see over here, you can see there's a column that shows inventory. I can see how much of this particular item I have in inventory. So for this Athens desk, I have 200. I might have 50 of this particular coffee filter over here. You can see what the unit price is and the unit cost and the price is on here. And you can change the way you view your data. Now I can drill down into this particular area, which opens up all the different transactions that has been processed for this particular item. I can see the purchases that have been made, the shipments that have been processed through. But with this, I can actually go and analyze the data too, because again, one system, I've got everything at hand. So I can go in and analyze this data, and I can then segment this data to go, I want to have a look at this by customer group, for example. I have a look at the different, if it's sales or purchase transaction. I might want to even have a look at this by specific area, and I can segment that data based on configurations in Business Central. But I can do that already on the data. Once I've processed the transactions, I can go into an analysis mode over here and view the data. But with that, you've got the capabilities of Copilot too. So I don't have to go and create this myself. I can type in some text in this little box over here, and Business Central will go in and create that report for us and bring through the data, and we can then analyze that. If I want to change it, I can then just, using natural language, change that up, and Business Central will go and change that report for us. Okay. Coming back to being able to use the other Microsoft platforms, this is an example where we're using Outlook. Okay, so using Outlook with Business Central. So people that are used to using Outlook and work day to day in Outlook can then connect to their Business Central data and reply to emails without having to jump between the two different systems. So when we're in Outlook, I have a little Microsoft Dynamics pane here to the right where I can see all the customer information. Again, having these different cues over here that show me what's ongoing on their account, what's their balance on their account, is there something that I need to be looking at. If I had more transactions, I'll be able to see the different aged accounts receivable in a nice graph view over there too. But it's not only viewing the data, it's actually you're able to create new documents from this too. So I can say, well, from this email, I actually want to create a new sales order, and I can do that without leaving Outlook. Okay, so you have the capabilities of using different systems, but as one integrated system. Okay. Now, when it comes to reports, Business Central has over 75 built-in Power BI reports that come with it as standard. So again, because data is processed through in one central system. We have data from our operational side. We have finance data. So I have an inventory report over here as an example. I can see what that inventory is by different locations. So if you have different locations or different warehouses set up and you want to see what the inventory quantity is by those different locations, you can view that. I can see over here, you got different items by location, for example, on here, my projected availability, projected balance on those items too. But then we also have finance reports on that too. So being able to look at that financial data, what the impact is, what those vendor balances are, what, how many vendors do I have outstanding payments for? What is the return on those assets? So everything is pulled together in one system. And because of that, the beauty of that is that we can create our reports, we can see the reports, we can see the data as it happens in one central place. Okay. So that was just a little bit of a quick view around Business Central and what Business Central offers you in that area. But if we look at AI, Copilot, and what the actual business value is, what does that mean? Now, it only helps once the data and processes are all joined up. And this is exactly what Business Central gives you, okay? If we bolt on AI into a mess, all we're going to get is faster mess. So we need to make sure our data and everything is nice and clean, is nice in central place. Now, Copilot sits inside of Business Central, inside the work, where Copilot can then help us summarize information, can help us create the reports that I spoke about earlier. But also another great example of that is actually help you reconcile a bank statement, or creating the report that I mentioned, or work that it would normally take you an afternoon to do. Copilot can help speed up that specific process. But not only do we have Copilot, we also have agents within Business Central. And agents are basically, let's call them digital labor. Okay, so those repetitive rule-based tasks that we would follow, we can give to an agent to do, and you can actually just be the supervisor, having a look, or the users can be the supervisor to say, are we happy with this task that the agent has done? So we have a sales order agent, for example, and instead of somebody manually going in and keying in the information, the sales order agent takes that information, can process that information, and you as a user can supervise and can go, hey, over here, are you happy with this? We've checked the price, we've checked everything, we can deliver on time, this is the outcome. Are you happy to email back the customer going, yep, we're good. We can draft that email for you too and send that information on. So that's where we get to those agents and where they can really help. And again, this ties back to what I said earlier about busy, not productive. Okay, so this gives us that time back. Microsoft have also kind of, again, done their own study where 80% of finance and operation leaders plan to use digital labor within 12 to 18 months. So not replacing the judgment, it's just freeing people, your best people up, so people can concentrate on the tasks that they need to, okay? So not spending time on useless tasks, but really on things that your best people can spend their time on and where they're good at, okay? So how does this look again in Business Central? So we have Business Central, as I mentioned, again, at the core. Business Central is always at the core of everything. We then have Copilot on top of that. So I've mentioned some of these things already, where we have our analysis assist, so we can type in what report we're trying to look for. We can chat with Copilot, asking questions about our specific data, summarizing the data for us, helping us with marketing text, reconciling a bank account again. Wrapped around that, our agents. So our autonomous agents can sit with that. We have the sales order agent that can process the sales order for us. A payables agent which can take that invoice and import that invoice into Business Central and do matching against an order. We have an expense agent, so doing expenses can be submitted through Business Central using an agent too. But with that, you also have the ability to then extend that. So because we're using the rest of the Microsoft stack on there, we have the ability to go, we want to create our own agent using Business Central data, but doing something different. We've got the Copilot Studio and the capabilities to connect with that. You've got your Power Automator around that too. So everything in that ecosystem allows us to use Business Central better and use our data better because we've got it in one central place. So that's the key. That's the message about like having data not in separate systems, but one system that we can use this data in. Okay. Now, if you're a numbers person, let's try to put some numbers behind everything from here. Okay. So these aren't our numbers. These numbers come from a Forrester study that has been done with organizations that are using Business Central. So out of this study, it was found that there's a 209% return on investment and also a payback within 6 months. Okay. Finance and operations teams have seen an increase of 50% on their productivity. So that rekeying, reconciling data, that basically disappears, right? And 14% lower total cost of ownership. And the reason for that is largely because we're retiring those old legacy systems, okay? So then we also then look at, and you might be saying, well, my business is different and every business is different. And we can't guarantee that these are exactly the same numbers that will be for your business, but it's fairly consistent through all the things that we see and through the data that is provided. So really, it is less manual effort, a faster close, better visibility for everyone, lower running costs, and that's the real true prize that we're getting. Okay, so when is Business Central actually the right fit, and how do we deliver that? Okay, so a few things to look at as when Business Central might be the right fit for you. Now, we come across these things, and these are some of the things that come up again and again when we have conversations and we see these. So one of those key things is when you've outgrown your entry-level accounting system and you have loads of spreadsheets popping up everywhere, you might have many disconnected systems where, again, your people are the glue between these systems. So not just the systems, but our people are core, because without them, we can't glue everything and there's missing data between that. You might even be on an old ERP platform, something like Dynamics NAV or GP, that is not keeping up with your scale of your business. Or you might just be scaling up. Okay, you might be creating new entities, new acquisitions in your business, different locations, selling in different areas, and you really have to then concentrate on like, how are we going to scale? We need a system to support us scaling this. So if two or three things that I have mentioned rings a bell with you, then I would say Business Central is probably something to look at. But if it's just one of these things, maybe Business Central is not just there ready for you just yet. And we'll be honest, so this is where we come in and help. We'll be honest with you about when Business Central is required. When do we think it's a good fit? But how do we do this as Bearing Point? How can we support this? Now, most ERP projects where it's under-delivered, usually for one reason. So where we see ERP projects, like I said, is under-delivered for one reason mainly, is that people want to carry their old ways of working going forward. So looking at that old system going, yeah, we basically just want this system that we have now, we want it in a new system. That doesn't help anyone. So taking those old legacy processes and trying to hard code it in a new system will not work. Okay, you might have some short-term requirements that dominate and go, these are the things that we need right now. It's not going to help you either. So this new shining platform, you don't want it to behave exactly like the old one. Okay, that's where ERP projects struggle and they tend to fail, because you're trying to replicate exactly the same thing. But what we do is we want to start the other way around. We want to step back and basically look forward. So our engagement and envisioning really takes around about 2 to 4 weeks, where it's an interactive business-led workshops where we can sit with you and understand how you operate. We then have those conversations and say, what do you want to do? How do you process your business? What do you want to do going forward? Once we have those details, we can then go and design a solution and build a proof of concept for you on Business Central. So not just document everything, we'll build this in Business Central. We can then play that back to you so you can actually really see what those processes will look like in the future for you. So not just documentation that you need to read through. So we're not concentrating on that. We want to show you Business Central. We want to show you what you are going to see. So before you make a full commitment in Business Central, we want you to see that proof of concept. We want you to see Business Central and go, actually, we can see how this will work for us in the future. So once we've done that solution showcase and shown you Business Central, we can then finish that off with a project proposal. Because we've got the detail and we understand what you're looking for, we can give you a real scope, cost, and timeline on what that project will look like for you. Okay, so this is where we can really help and support you in that whole process of finding the ERP, and is Business Central kind of fit for what you're looking for. So this should, give you that idea of like where as what you're looking for in terms of an ERP solution. Has Business Central, we have that conversation with you in terms of, let's have a look at what you're looking for, where you're going. Are we doing different acquisitions? Is it just that you've got spreadsheets everywhere? Having those discovery workshops and sitting with you to try to find the information that you require. We can go through that. After we've done that, again, going into building that solution for you in Business Central. So this will take us through those processes and really give you an idea of what that project proposal will look like and what a true project will look like from there. Okay. That then kind of brings us to kind of any questions that we have. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of like, if there's one takeaway from today and today's session, is really Business Central will brings together finance and operations into that one core foundation. Okay, so we've got one place where we're not rekeying information into the different areas. We have the visibility that you want to grow. Like if you grow, Business Central will grow with you. Whether it's right for you and when it depends totally on your specific situation. So if you have any questions around Business Central or want to have a bit more detail around Business Central, please feel free to reach out to myself, my colleagues, Cara Hay or Brendan Doyle. We are more than happy to have a specific session with you and to take any calls with you and discuss any information you would like, or if you just want to see a bit more of Business Central, find out who we are and how we can help in those different areas, please feel free to kind of let us know, and we're happy to have those conversations with you. Okay. So let me just have a look if we have any questions that we have. So we don't have any questions. From there, if there's no other questions from anybody, hopefully that's given everybody a bit of an overview of Business Central, a quick understanding of what Business Central is, where it can fit into your business, and where Bearing Point can help you and understand those specific needs, and hopefully present Business Central back to you. So if there's no any questions, I think that brings us to the end of our webinar today. So thanks everybody for joining.